At this time, I would like to call the regularly scheduled Plan Commission meeting to order. Let the record reflect it is Thursday, March 18th, 2021 at 7 p.m. This is Chairman Gray speaking. At this time, I ask that anyone joining us remotely to please mute your phones. Thank you. For those wishing to follow along with the PowerPoint, you are encouraged to access the meeting through Tinley Park Television on YouTube. It is my understanding that all members and staff present have checked in on the conference line and we can begin our meeting. Please note throughout the meeting we expect to have other individuals joining us via phone pertaining to specific agenda items. Thanks in advance for your patience and cooperation through tonight's Plan Commission meeting, which is convening remotely via conference call. This open meeting of the Village of Tinley Park is being conducted remotely, consistent with Governor Pritzker's Executive Order 2020-07 issued on March 16th, 2020, which suspends the Open Meetings Act provisions relating to in-person attendance by members of a public body. The Open Meetings Act, OMA, requires public bodies to allow for public comment. Therefore, this meeting will include public comment via the established protocol. Even if members of the public do not provide comment, participants are advised that people may be listening who do not provide comment, and those persons are not required to identify themselves. Please note that this meeting is being recorded and that some attendees are participating by web or audio conference. We're getting used to working and meeting remotely, and we've done so for a while, so I don't feel it necessary to go over every protocol again. Just remember to wait until I address you, and please keep your phones muted until addressed, and when you do unmute, please identify yourselves. Thank you. At this time, I'll ask the Commission Secretary to please take the roll call for tonight.
Commissioner Gray.
Here.
Commissioner Manny.
Here.
Commissioner Aitchison.
Here.
Commissioner Vick.
Here.
Commissioner Gaskill.
Present.
Commissioner Mosquito. All right, I believe that's all we have in attendance for commissioners.
You could still call the other ones that aren't here.
Okay. All right. So Commissioner Engel, Commissioner Gatto, Commissioner West.
Okay.
All right.
Okay. We have a quorum for tonight. This is Chairman Gray. So staff, are there any communications for the commission this time?
No, there's not. Not at this time.
Okay. Again, this is Chairman Gray. We'll now begin with the approval of the minutes. May I have a motion to approve the minutes of the March 4th, 2021 Plan Commission meeting?
This is Commissioner Aitchison, so moved.
This is Commissioner Manny. I second that motion.
Okay. Motion. This is Chairman Gray. Motion made by Commissioner Aitchison, seconded by Commissioner Manny. I will now ask for a voice vote. Are there any opposed to this motion? Okay, hearing none, the motion is carried. Move on to the first item on our agenda. The first item this evening is a workshop to consider approving a site plan and recommending the Village Board grant Robert Bettinardi on behalf of RJB Tinley Park Real Estate LLC, the property owner, a special use for a substantial deviation from the planned unit development, PUD, with exceptions from the zoning ordinance for the property located at 7650 Graphics Drive in the ORI PUD, Office and Residential Industrial, Hickory Creek PUD zoning district. Staff, could you please make your presentation on this workshop item at this time?
Sure. Thanks, Chairman. And as you stated, this is going to be for an addition for Bettinardi Golf on an existing building. That building is not their current building. If you're on I-80, you would see a Bettinardi Golf sign on the expressway on the building and a ground sign with an LED message center on it. It's not that building. This one's actually going to be two lots to the east of that, essentially. So it's the Igor building. So they purchased that with a purchase agreement from Igor, who's going to still be working out of that building as a tenant, as a lease back for some time here. But in the meantime, then Bettinardi is looking to expand the building, and so they can start operating out of it as well. So this will be this graphic on your screen is the planned unit development area, or PUD. In there is the 2.2 acre site, which has the star on it that we're talking about. The current Bettinardi building is to the west of that. The red line is showing you kind of where that PUD is at, and this PUD is fairly unique because it does, it did basically have 4 lots that were previously developed when the PUD came into existence. So it kind of was retroactively placed over those properties that were previously developed. And the PUD is, it's got an underlying ORI, Office Restricted Industrial Zoning, and it's really there to allow some flexibility in the uses, allow some additional docks, things beyond kind of the traditional ORI zoning to give it a little more industrial feel, but not really allow large outdoor manufacturing type facilities or exterior storage. So, but they still wanted some of the uses like distribution, warehousing, wholesale that's permitted. So this PUD was developed in 2006, and again, it was kind of retroactively placed over those lots that are outlined in blue, which are 4 lots on the far south side of this. The subject site, again, which is the star, is has a 23,996 square foot building on it. It's a 2.2 acre property that was originally developed in 1991 by Igor for their purposes. The PUD is kind of the traditional manufacturing type district that has a lot of industrial, warehouse, trucking type uses. So the majority of people traveling through this are truck drivers, employees, not the general public. So there's not a lot of kind of office, medical, insurance agent type uses that you might see in some other kind of lighter industrial parks. This one's got a heavier focus on some truck traffic through there. As with PUDs, for some of the terms are kind of unique for planned unit developments and PUDs. There's exceptions there instead of a traditional variation, which is kind of more applicable to the village as a whole, where an exception within a PUD, really, you're kind of looking more at that PUD and how does it relate to that PUD, as well as the goals of it. So it's a little different because we say exceptions here when it's in a planned unit development, but not a variation, which is where you'd be more traditionally applied to like fence variations or sign variations if it was not in a planned unit development. The existing building, again, 23,996 square feet. They're looking to do a 7,176 square foot addition. So then you have your total of 31,172 square feet. And again, they're looking to operate 2 businesses kind of out of this one building for the time being, which will be both Igor and Bettinardi Golf. They'll each kind of have their sides of the building, but then there'll be some shared space kind of in between there for docks, loading, unloading, bathrooms. I'm not exactly sure everything, but there's kind of some shared space in between there, between the 2 tenants that they would use. And again, these uses are kind of enclosed manufacturing, office, warehousing, distribution, so uses permitted in that PUD. Here is the site plan, so you can see the additions on the north side of the building, or on the right side of this screen, which is the north. And it's going into where there was previously a parking area and asphalt there, so that's kind of the most economical way for them to expand this building, is to place that on the north side of it. The addition's slightly wider than the existing building, and this is one, to maximize kind of the square footage they could get out of the addition. It also helps a little bit with the architecture, which we can get into a little bit later, but it kind of helps the transition between the new addition and the existing building, so that way there's not just kind of a solid line between them. It kind of makes for kind of a more natural break between the two properties. There is kind of the outside of that proposed addition, which is obviously new to the site. There's also a new dock aisle, or dock area and drive aisle on the east of the property that's called out there, as well as some new guest parking areas along, kind of at the main entrance, along the main drive aisle into the property. And that's right next to the pond and called out there on your screen. And so that's kind of our first open item here, is just the overall site plan layout for you guys to review that. It's generally pretty simple. Most of it's pretty well set, but just in terms of overall site layout, and size of the addition and truck circulation. The new existing dock area that's on that east side is really there to, one, kind of allow for a separate dock area for one of the tenants. It also can allow for kind of drive-through truck traffic. If they want that to happen, they can get trucks to circulate through the building, depending on which side they come in. And so here's your circulation patterns. You can kind of see the two areas that are truck docks are circled there in red. So you have one on the east side and then the existing docks on the west side. So the majority of trucks are going to be coming in from that main drive aisle. They drive past the employee and visitor parking area and then would enter the docks either on the west side or the east side. And that's going to depend a little bit on their internal kind of scheduling between the two tenants. So I'm not sure of all the details on that, but this is kind of their preference to have this additional dock on the east side. Currently, there's a dock on the north side, essentially the back of the building where this addition's going. And so this dock on the east side is kind of replacing that dock that's on the back of the building now. Parking, so currently there's 80 parking stalls out there. There's only one 88 stall stripe, so we're revising that because it doesn't meet the Illinois accessibility or ADA codes. So they're coming into compliance. And then you also have the building addition that's taking away some stalls, but then they're also adding some parking stalls. So, and kind of making the parking area a little more efficient than it was previously. So they have 74 parking stalls proposed with 3 ADA stalls. The requirement for their site is 62 stalls, and that's 57 for the office spaces, 5 for the warehouse. They have proposed 5 new kind of visitor stalls that again are going to be on the southwest corner, kind of at the main entrance to the site by that pond. And this is kind of one of the call-outs there, is just that this is a front yard parking, so typically we don't permit parking in front yards, and that's in our traditional zoning code as well as the urban design overlay district that this is a part of, which is really pushing for more kind of urban design standards that would create more walkability. It's a little tough to apply in an industrial area next to I-80 that's already kind of existing. So we've run into it before. It's a good code in theory when you're talking about new development, but it's really tough when you're talking about auto-oriented uses. So we've run into this a couple times, especially on new gas stations, and then here too, in an industrial park that has no sidewalks, it's pretty tough sometimes to apply those. And we do want to call out that as the plan is right now, there's not really a walkway or anything to the main door from that parking area. You can see here, so it's just kind of a parking area there on the top of this image, the upper left of the image, which is the southwest corner of the site. So one of our comments is to add a walkway of some sort from those parking stalls to the main entrance, and see how they can make that fit, because otherwise you're kind of walking out into that main drive aisle where you could have vehicles, trucks, and then walking basically through the parking lot to get to the main entrance walkway. So that's one comment or one suggestion that we have that they come here and revise. The other kind of open item with this is that is just to discuss the exception in terms of front yard parking being on the site. So it's typically not our preference in most areas in town, but in these industrial areas, they're really looking to maximize the building footprint, as well as kind of the parking lots are usually fairly small compared to the square footage that's available in the building. So, and that's kind of what they're doing here. They're maximizing the site with building and not necessarily parking. And so sometimes it does kind of leak out into those front yards, and you can see a couple examples here on Graphics Drive of kind of areas that they're not massive parking lots out in the front, but some of them kind of leak into those. And again, this isn't something we'd want in the Legacy District or in the downtown. It doesn't make for kind of a nice walkable area, but you can still kind of dress it up from a landscaping perspective, so it's nice to drive down. We want to be pedestrian oriented, and that's great. This area is probably the last place in town somebody's just going to be going for a stroll, though. There's a lot of truck traffic. It's really not that you can see even on the aerial. There's not really any sidewalks out there, so in theory, staff doesn't really have too many concerns with the front yard parking, and it seems to fit in with the PUD it's in, as well as the neighboring PUD that's there to the left of them. From a landscaping perspective, there's some minor changes being proposed here. For the most part, the site's in compliance with the landscaping codes. They've kind of dressed up the front. With anything, with kind of any redevelopment or repurposing of these sites, the village's goal is always to bring it a little bit closer to our current codes and really focus on kind of public frontages in terms of being able to dress it up, knowing that these sites weren't developed under our current codes, and that it may be very difficult to kind of retrofit them to meet it. So we try and get them as much as possible and really kind of dress up kind of any public frontages and kind of utilize landscaping in any kind of undefined asphalt areas. So they've done a relatively good job here adding in kind of some additional landscaping around the building, as well as along the drive aisle, the kind of main drive aisle, and in the parking lot. So there will be a fence that remains kind of around that rear parking area, but it will no longer be gated. So currently there's kind of a gate that can be closed and latched, and that won't remain, but they will keep the fence that's out there, and is actually a pretty nice looking fence. They'll keep that around the parking area. The architecture of this is pretty basic, and it's really the goal is to kind of make it look like the existing building, which is really what our code pushes for on any addition. So using similar material, similar look in terms of color, texture, size. So they got pretty they got as close as they could possibly find to that existing brick out there from a thin brick material. It could be slightly different though, and you always kind of run into that when you have older buildings that are 30, 40 years older than the addition you're putting on. You're not going to usually be able to find exactly the same color, exactly the same texture or size, but they are pretty close here. And again, one of the advantages of that offset of the building on the west side is that you don't really get that seam that would happen if it was exactly the same plane. So you normally get kind of like a caulked seam that stands out a little bit more. I think from afar, you won't be able to tell that this is an addition. When you're looking at it, it'll look pretty close to the existing building back there. So, and then they've screened the rooftop mechanical equipment as well, kind of in a similar color to the doors, the gutters, and kind of the other items on the building. Lighting, so they have proposed new facade lighting on the building, and this would help kind of illuminate the back parking area where right now there's a parking pole light. This would just be, since it kind of condenses that parking area, it can just be lit from the building wall lighting, and so they proposed the downcast LED lights. Staff's comments for this basically is the photometric plan didn't really show the new parking area, that guest parking area in the front. And then we're also looking to see if the building will be upgraded with these lights overall, so that way they'd have matching fixtures on the building and kind of an even lighting pattern throughout the building. So one of our open items is just to have them revise that photometric plan to include the staff visitor parking, make sure there's adequate lighting there, and then also replace existing fixtures so that way you get kind of one common appearance across the building. So I think that's it for the staff report. I'll give it back to you, Chairman.
Okay, thank you, Dan. This is Chairman Gray speaking. And at this time, I'm going to ask the commission members if they have any comments or discussion on this matter, beginning with Commissioner Aitchison.
My only comment is that I do agree with staff's recommendations in regards to the lighting.
Okay, yes. Thank you, Commissioner Aitchison. Commissioner Manny.
Yeah, my comment is that I agree with all the recommendations for the staff notes. Just one comment regarding the seam, between the two, the addition and the existing building. I think that that caulking, it will be a control joint, to control the existing and the new structure. So you don't want the brick to crack. So I think that would look fine. Just how however the architectural drawings show. So, but it looks good.
Okay, thank you, Commissioner Manny. Commissioner Vick.
Besides, agreeing with other people with the lighting stuff, recommendations and stuff, including that front parking area. There definitely needs to be some sort of way where people that park in those, if they're going to keep those spots in place, those 5 out front there in the front yard area, they need to have a dedicated walkway for that. On that overhead shot of the area, you can kind of see that one of the other places has the same kind of thing, but there's a walkway, from their spots to the back, like a little sidewalk area. They knew that because that's a shared road by the look of it, and it's just, I don't know how far it goes back. I haven't been back in that area in a while, but or if that's a full through or not that road. So you definitely don't want people walking out, close to that road at all. With that, and then what it comes down to is that, and of course adding lighting for that area so people can adequately see and walk through whatever path they would create. You know, and then what it really comes down to is then, is there really the need for those extra spots or not, or is their parking lot going to be filled up completely as it is? The way things sit with the new plan, even though they are losing some spots with the addition, you know, out of the, I don't know what percentage of the required spots they actually used, the 62, I think it was, right, or something like that.
Yes, 62.
Yeah.
Yep.
62, how many of those are they actually using? Do they even need those spots out there? I mean, I'm assuming they're showing a need for it. That's why they want to put them there. But, you know, they've got to consider the other parts to it as well, I think, with that. Otherwise, you know, I think it's good. The building will look good with those, with all the everything matching and kind of going together like that, to where you'll barely notice the new addition to it. So I think it's good otherwise.
Yeah, and to comment on the walkway you're kind of pointing out there is actually their existing building. So, yeah, their current existing building kind of is that front parking and that walkway in front of it, which is the current Bettinardi building that's out there. So, agree.
Okay. Commissioner Gaskell.
No
any
comment.
comments?
No comment, thank you.
Okay. Commissioner Lasciuto.
Yeah, I just wanted to agree with everything that staff said about the recommendations, especially with the lighting and the appearance of the building. And then also agree with Commissioner Vick regarding that walkway from that guest parking lot, that there does need to be something there, being that much of a distance from the front door, and you don't want visitors having to, you know, walk through the parking lot where there's trucks and cars going through. So definitely agree with those comments. And then just I want to state that, you know, glad that another Tinley business is expanding in this area. That's all I have.
Okay, thank you, Commissioner Lasciuto. This is Chairman Gray. My comments are basically I echo what the commission has said right now. I also agree with staff's recommendations. I think it was a very thorough report. I'm going to just echo what Commissioner Lasciuto and Commissioner Vick said about that, just to stress that those additional parking lots on that southwest portion of the site, I believe, in terms of having a walkway to the main door, because otherwise they're going to be walking into that southwest drive or the private drive to the south. And as Commissioner Lasciuto said, you're going to probably have trucks and other type of traffic. So just in the spirit of keeping everybody safe and keeping them on a sidewalk away from traffic, I think should be looked at. And then I'll give Commissioner Vick comments some credit too, in terms of perhaps maybe they don't need those extra, I believe, 5 spaces they may want to look at. They do have over the requirement, so perhaps if they can't fit them in, maybe they are not needed. But that's just something to consider. But I do think the overall design looks good on some of the open items, like in terms of open item 7. I think the architecture looks fine. To Commissioner Manny's point, you will have a control joint there. His profession is architecture, so he doesn't have a problem with the caulking between buildings. And I do think you're going to try to match as best as possible, but it does look clean. And I also agree with matching those fixtures and then keeping them balanced and making sure there's adequate lighting to those parking spots. But overall, I think it looks pretty good. I do want to comment that I have no problem with the spaces being 24 and a half feet wide versus the 26. They already have that, so obviously it seems to be working to a certain degree. So that type of deviation or variation from that, I think is totally fine. But the site looks clean, it looks contained, and those are my comments at this time. At this time, I will ask the petitioner if they wish to introduce themselves or have anything else they would like to present to the commission on this item at this time. And if so, unmute yourself, identify yourself.
We have Jim Warner here, who's the general contractor. He's here in person, so I can let him introduce himself.
Yes, my name is James Wayner. I'm the owner of Wayner Enterprises. We're the general contractor on the project for Bettinardi. And I'd like to thank everyone for the review of this project. We have talked over all the comments from staff with the ownership, and they have agreed that we will do everything in our possible to take care of all those changes that were recommended.
Okay, thanks, Jim. I appreciate your presence and in person, no less, here today. So, thank you. And with that, if any of the commissioners have anything to add, speak now. Okay, hearing none. Jim, just for your information, write this down. There will be a public hearing on this item on April 1st, 2021. So get with staff on how you can attend, whether it's attending in person or it'll be here in the Village Hall chambers or visiting online to attend. With that, good luck.
And I'll follow up with you and we can discuss some of the changes and stuff and how to resubmit. So.
Great, thank you.
And you're welcome to stay for the next item, or you can also leave, which is probably your preference. Thanks.
Okay, this is Chairman Gray. We'll move on to the second item on tonight's agenda, which is a public hearing to consider recommending the village board grant Thomas McAuliffe, on behalf of Durbin's petitioner, approval of a special use permit for a restaurant pickup window in the NF Legacy Neighborhood Flex zoning district. May I have a motion to open the public hearing?
This is Commissioner Aitchison, so moved.
This is Commissioner Vick. I second the motion.
Okay, this is Chairman Gray. The motion was made by Commissioner Aitchison, seconded by Commissioner Vick. I will ask for a voice vote. Are there any opposed to this motion? Hearing none, the motion is carried. Anyone wishing to speak on this matter will be sworn in before they speak after the staff's presentation. So staff, at this time, please proceed with your presentation.
Sure, not too much has changed from our workshop at the last meeting, so I'll make this one fairly brief, but I will still kind of go over some of the main points, the main request, and then kind of some of the changes they made since that workshop. Again, this is Durbin's. They're looking to open a second location at 18250 Oak Park Avenue. This is where Darla's is, and formerly that was always open. There's Ames Hardware and a dry cleaners in that shopping center. This is kind of the north part of that site, and it used to be actually a separate building. They're connected to the rest of the shopping center now since they did a remodel and put in sprinklers into the building, so it's all one building now. And this is where they're looking to do a kind of fast express version of their current Durbin's. So pizza, wings, the same stuff you kind of find at Durbin's, but it'll be with a focus of more kind of a carry-out, takeout, and delivery aspects, and obviously that's at least partially due to how COVID has affected restaurants and kind of what their business models are. So they're looking to do that here. As part of that concept, they're looking at putting a carry-out window on the north side of the building. So separately, kind of staggered with this request was a text amendment request to allow for that type of a carry-out window, separating it from what a drive-through is. So a carry-out window being that it's a restaurant, there's no ordering on site, so you won't get a menu board or a speaker post, and then limited stacking. So the point being that most people have pre-ordered ahead and that they're given a time when their food will be ready, and most of the time that's gonna be the case, is they'll be able to pull up, pay, grab their food and go, and it should take all of a couple minutes for each vehicle. And at a lower rate than, say, like a Starbucks drive-through or a Dunkin' Donuts or something like that could have quite a few vehicles coming through it. So with that in mind, here's again the Durbin's in that shopping center, and this is in the neighborhood flex district, so that's the only district we kind of identified as kind of the best locations for this type of a use, for a pickup window essentially. And that's kind of because they're the bookends of the site, and they're a little more traditional type of shopping centers. They're not in the downtown core. We do want them to kind of connect our different areas in town. So like this is kind of the connection point between the hotels and the amphitheater and then going into our downtown. So we do want that connection, but we also feel that there's some flexibility potentially for something like this, where that could be like a pickup, a little more traditional style without being a full drive-through. In that shopping center is also Darla's, which is owned by Tom as well in Durban. So kind of the competition you see here is actually the same owner. So and then there's Ames and a Cleaners, and then a one-bedroom apartment, which is fairly unique to this site. And that was approved in 2013 with a special use. That's 1,000 square feet again. And that's really there for tax purposes. And we've had that request on a number of sites to add an apartment. Usually the preference being kind of a second floor apartment. But with this one, they were able to do quite a bit of work to the site as well. Remodeling the facade, adding sprinklers, upgrading the landscaping, the walkways, and restriping the parking lot, repaving the front parking lot, and replacing the light poles. So that all happened in 2013, 2014, when they got that special use and did those site upgrades. And again, just here's the legacy district and where his site is. The goal really to be kind of still walkable, have a gateway area. And again, we had that pickup window text amendment, which really, you guys looked at that and said, okay, the NF district kind of makes sense. How this pickup window could work and not negatively affect walkability, but it's very dependent upon the site, making sure they're not adding any curb cuts, they're not reducing any walkability. It doesn't take away from the streetscape in any way or cause any off-site issues. So that's where in front of you today is the special use for that pickup window, where we're kind of looking at the specific site and how it functions on that site. So again, Durban's second location, similar menu, focus on takeout and delivery, and then they're going to have probably 6 to 8 tables depending on how it lays out, and then the preference is for a gaming area as well in there. So something very similar to Darla's is how Tom explained it to me, is you kind of walk in there, feels like a restaurant, but kind of off to the side there's usually a little hidden game room. So something similar to Darla's, but more with the Durban's theme on it. So we discussed that, and that wasn't the special use for the pickup window, and the coordination with the legacy plan. It didn't seem like there was too many concerns there that it negatively affected kind of what the plan and the principles of that legacy plan were. For the site plan, this is kind of where we're focusing, plugging in something, even a pickup window that's a drive-through can be even more difficult, but plugging in pickup windows into existing sites can get very difficult because the site really wasn't designed with that in mind. So you have circulation, blind spots, stacking considerations, things like that can be very difficult to kind of make these work and not cause issues on the site or off-site. So this one is fairly lucky in that it's set up in a way that this can kind of work and allow vehicles to circulate through the site without really getting in the way of kind of the front parking or the front area of the shopping center. So they circulate counterclockwise through the site. And then there's a number of signs that will show kind of one-way as well as do not enter signs that kind of reinforce that one-way circulation. One of the comments coming out of the workshop meeting was to make sure we added a sign kind of at the end of that northwest corner of the building, where right after you pick up your food, you're driving forward. So there's now a stop or yield sign that will be facing the drive-through lane, as well as a do not enter sign that's then going to be facing more towards the parking area. So that way, if a vehicle backs out of those rear stalls, they won't leave the way they came in. Those should either be vehicles that came in and already know it's one way, or employees, but just a reinforcement there that they don't go the wrong way out. Besides that, there's arrows striped as well, and those will be confirmed kind of with the permit. The site plan was updated here to include the striping and the signage comments, but we added it as a condition too, just to kind of clarify that, since it was a discussion point on the recommended conditions. Here you can see the kind of two things that we've talked about, and one's the pavement condition of that drive aisle and the need to resurface that. So Tom's agreed with that, and we have a deadline there. Just to make this a better ride through here, it's kind of a series of patches out there in the back with a couple main areas that are kind of rough. So he's planning to repave those areas, very specifically the drive aisle area there to the north that you can see in these photos. The other thing you can see in these photos is the gas meter that's on the corner of the building that's protected by bollards. So they'll need to likely replace those bollards, as well as put some curbing on the bottom of it, and that's really to help guide vehicles away from it. And then the bollards will really help protect it. That's not a preference usually, to have a gas meter kind of at the beginning of a drive aisle at all. Even if there wasn't a pickup window or a drive-through, you still really don't want that in drive aisles. But yet, this is kind of where we're at. It's there, and Tom did look into moving that to the back corner of the building or the rear of the building, and the price kind of made it cost prohibitive for him to be able to do that, because you have to basically replace it all the way back to the main. So that means right-of-way work and quite a bit of extra work digging up the road to replace the entire line. So his preferences, and we're able to work with him to come up with a plan to leave it where it's at, but make sure it's protected from vehicles as much as possible. Parking-wise, there's 2 parking stalls required for the residential and 26 essentially required for the commercial, so 28 total. There's 37 provided there, so there's an excess of parking. They do have 2 stalls in the back that will be dedicated for Durbin's pickup, so that way if there is somebody that pulls up and their order's not ready, they can have them pull around to the back of the building, park there, and then the employees can bring it out once it's ready. And so that way they're not kind of backing up vehicles at the drive aisle. And so it exceeds the parking, so they can dedicate those stalls. If there is any other issues, they could dedicate further stalls, either in the back or in the front by their space for those pickup windows. Lighting-wise, so this is the other request that they have. That'll be a variation from the light fixture requirements of the legacy code. They're going with a little more sleek, modern, not even modern, but sleek design that would go on the back of these buildings and kind of blend in with the building more than some of the more traditional looking lights, like the gooseneck lights that are on the front of the building. So these will largely not be visible from the right-of-way or from the roadway. And so we think these kind of more slimmed downlights are actually the better choice. They don't really draw attention, but that's not really what you want on the back of a building. So we were supportive of this, and the Plan Commission at the workshop seemed like it made sense as well. They give a little more light coverage, and they blend in a little bit more to the building than those gooseneck fixtures. And then other than that, they're not really making any changes to the architecture, or the landscaping, or the signage. There's a few code enforcement items that we're going to have our code enforcement staff work with the property owner. So there's some missing landscaping and things like that out there, more tied to the special use for the apartment. And so we will have them work on those here as spring comes up with the property owner. And that's it for the staff report.
Okay, thank you, Dan, for the presentation. It was good. This is Chairman Gray. I just want to mention that I did receive proof of the notice of publication for the public hearing for this item. And with that said, I'm going to ask the commissioners if they have any comments or discussion for staff on this matter, beginning with Commissioner Lasciuto.
I have no further comments.
Okay. Commissioner Gaskell.
Yes. No comments.
Commissioner Manny.
No comment.
Commissioner Aitchison.
No comments.
Okay. With that, I do want to mention that and I'm sure the commissioners had received this as well, but I received a letter from staff, from Dan, that was forwarded from a neighbor to the west who had concerns about the property and request for privacy fencing on that west side of the property. And I just want to say kudos to both the neighbor and to the petitioner, Tom McAuliffe, who reached out to the neighbor. They discussed it, her concerns, and Tom agreed to install a privacy fence on the west side. And so I think it's a good testament to being a good neighbor. So I just want to bring attention to that and what good communication can do. So kudos to both the neighbor and to Tom for working that out. And I just want to add that two-sided sign on that northwest corner does look good. And so I have no other further comments. So at this time, is the petitioner on the phone line? Do they have anything they would like to present or add on this item?
No, this is Tom McCall. I do not have any comments.
Okay.
Chairman Gray, this is Kathy. Did you call on Commissioner Vick for comments?
I'm sorry. I may have skipped him. Commissioner Vick, did you have any comments?
No, I did not. But
I wrote no.
But thank you.
I wrote no, but next to your name. So,
but you're right.
I called.
I don't have anything.
I checked all five. Okay. With that said, I was going to ask if any other commissioner wants to add something at this time. Please do. If not, we'll move forward. Okay, hearing none. No further comments. We'll move forward. Is there anyone from the public wishing to comment on this item?
No, there's nobody here. We just had that one comment that was shared with all the commissioners, and we'll add that to the public record as well. But again, the main comment summary was that she was looking for that fence, and so Tom agreed to it, and we've also added that as a condition into the approval as well, that be installed before the operation of the drive-up window.
Okay. Okay, so recognizing there is no one present other than the March 11th, 2021 record that will be put into record, we will move forward. So if there's no further questions or discussion, may I have a motion to close the public hearing?
Yeah, this is Commissioner Gaskell. I so move.
This is Commissioner Lasciuto. I second that motion.
This is Chairman Gray. Motion made by Commissioner Gaskell, seconded by Commissioner Lasciuto. I will ask for a voice vote at this time. Are there any opposed to this motion? Hearing none, the motion is carried. Again, I'll give it one more time. Commission, are there any further comments or discussion regarding this matter? If not, you don't have to speak. Okay, hearing no further comments, there are three motions for this item. May I have the first motion for the special use?
Oh, sorry, I forgot to add in there. Can I go
Commissioner
through?
Manning?
Can I go through the standards really quick? Sorry about that.
Oh, I'm sorry, Dan. Yeah, absolutely. So at this time, can staff go through the standards for this item?
Sure, and I'll just do a summary. They're on your screen, and they're also in the village staff report. But basically, there's the legacy code standards that would apply to the variation as well as the special use. And that basically it meets what the legacy plan's intent is, and that it's basically assisting in economic development and reuse of that building space in the currently vacant unit. Then you have your standards for a special use, and this is really focusing on the effects of the building and the site on adjacent properties. And so the stacking windows should not limit the development of any of those other properties. It's on an existing building and an existing site, and shouldn't affect any of the neighboring properties. And then you have the standards for a variation, which is related to the light fixtures. And again, these are unique in that they're a little more economical, attractive at the rear and the sides of the parking lot, and to help illuminate the drive aisles for customers and employees' safety and access. So these work a little bit better, and because they're on the sides and the rear, warrant a little bit unique consideration compared to the legacy code's required lighting types. And that's it.
Okay. Thanks, Dan. This is Chairman Gray. So with that, I will ask for three motions for this item at this time. May I have the first motion for the special use?
This is Commissioner Manning. I make a motion to grant the petitioner Thomas McAuliffe on behalf of Durbin's, the tenant, a special use for a restaurant pickup window at 18250 Oak Park Avenue in the NF Neighborhood Flex Zoning District in accordance with the plan submitted, and adopt findings of fact as proposed in the March 18, 2021 staff report, subject to the following conditions. 1, the pickup window shall not permit any on-site ordering and is for picking up previously placed orders only. Number 2, the special use is subject to completion of all work outlined in the site plan approval. And number 3, a 6-foot high privacy fence shall be installed along the western property line prior to operating the pickup window. A separate fence permit shall be obtained by the building department prior to installation.
Do I hear a second?
This is Commissioner Aitchison. I second that motion.
This is Chairman Gray. Motion made by Commissioner Manny, seconded by Commissioner Aitchison. Secretary, may I have a roll call?
Commissioner Gray,
Yes.
Commissioner Manning,
Yes.
Commissioner Aitchison,
Yes.
Commissioner Vick,
Yes.
Commissioner Gaskell,
Yes.
Commissioner Gaskell.
Yes.
Said yes. Sorry.
Okay. Commissioner Lasciuto.
Yes.
Thank you.
Okay, the motion is carried. This is Chairman Gray. Commission, may I have the second motion for the variation?
And this is Commissioner Vick. I make a motion to recommend that the village board grant a variation from section 12.3.I, table 3.I.1 for of the zoning code, legacy code - lighting, to the petitioner Thomas McAuliffe on behalf of Durbin's to permit a light fixture style not otherwise permitted to be located on the rear and sides of the building at the property located at 18250 Oak Park Avenue in the NF Neighborhood Flex zoning district, in accordance with the plan submitted, and adopt findings of fact as proposed by village staff in the March 18, 2021 staff report.
This is Commissioner Easterson. I second that motion.
This is Chairman Gray. Motion made by Commissioner Vick, seconded by Commissioner Aitchison. Secretary, may I have a roll call?
Commissioner Gray,
Yes.
Commissioner Manny,
Yes.
Commissioner Aitchison,
Yes.
Commissioner Vick,
Yes.
Commissioner Gaskell,
Yes.
Commissioner Lascuto.
Yes.
All right.
Okay. This is Chairman Gray. The motion is carried. Commission, may I have the final motion for site plan approval?
Yes, this is Commissioner Lasciuto, and I make a motion to grant the petitioner, Thomas McAuliffe, on behalf of Durbin's, the tenant, site plan approval to modify the property located at 18250 Oak Park Avenue in the NF Neighborhood Flex zoning district in accordance with the plan submitted and subject to the conditions listed in the March 18, 2021 staff report.
This is Commissioner Gaskell. I second that.
Do I hear a second? This is Chairman Gray. Motion made by Commissioner Lasciuto, seconded by Commissioner Gaskell. Secretary, may I have a roll call?
Commissioner Gray,
Yes.
Commissioner Manny,
Yes.
Commissioner Aitchison,
Yes.
Commissioner Vick,
Yes.
Commissioner Gaskell,
Yes.
Commissioner Lascuto.
Yes.
This is Chairman Gray. The motion is carried. So, Mr. McAuliffe, there will be this will go to the village board on April 18th, 2021.
It'll be April 13th.
Please get
Sorry
with-
about that. April 13th.
Oh,
for
I'm
that.
sorry. Yeah,
Sorry
yeah,
about
okay.
that.
13th, 2021. So, Mr. McAuliffe, get with staff to see how you can attend. And thank you for your time.
Well, thank you very much to the board and yourself. Thank you.
Thanks, Sam.
Okay. Good luck.
Thank you very much.
This is Chairman Gray. Staff will move to the good of the order. Do you have any comments for the good of the order at this time?
No, we've outlined most of the other projects the last few meetings, so I won't just repeat the same ones. They are moving forward, again, hiring another planner, so excited for that to get somebody new in here. Besides that, I don't really have anything, but if you guys ever have any questions about projects or codes or anything, feel free to either call me or you can bring it up in this part of the meeting too, if you want to discuss something with everyone. That's it.
Okay. Okay, thanks, Dan. Again, this is Chairman Gray. Staff, were there any public comments submitted or members in the audience right now that are wishing to speak today?
No, there's not.
Okay, this is Chairman Gray. If there's nothing further, I will entertain a motion to adjourn tonight's meeting.
This is Commissioner Aitchison. So moved.
This is Commissioner Manny. I second that motion.
Okay, motion made by Commissioner Aitchison, seconded by Commissioner Manny. I will take a voice vote. Any opposed? Okay, the motion is carried. This meeting is adjourned at 7:59 p.m.
Thanks, everyone.
Okay. Thanks,
Good night, all.
everybody. Have a good night.
Thank you.
Hey, good night, everyone.